Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to welcome you to this event, webinar that we have frequently at the GlobalWo.MenHub. And this time we are going to speak about leaders and work-life balance, work-life integration. We will see how the people and the speaker will position themselves. And the webinar here will be registered because then other people who are not able to attend the meeting or the webinar are able also to look it online on YouTube. So I thank you very much to have this possibility. And this webinar is also organized by the GlobalWo.MenHub, who is a non-for-profit organization set up in 2019 to enhance gender equality of women and men in daily life and in their professional life. And this is why we are looking at your views on this very important subject. Then Elena, who is a member of the hub and who is helping me a lot with different communication themes, she will be the moderator of this webinar. And Elena is a transformational coach, and she has been for more than 25 years supporting entrepreneurs and C-levels to build a fulfilling professional pathway. So she knows very much the aspect of the woman and human resources, and she will lead this debate. So Elena, I leave you the word now.
Thank you so much, Christine. And hi, everyone. Welcome to our discussion on work-life integration. In an era where the lines between work and life have become increasingly blurred, this traditional notion of work-life balance has kind of evolved into a more holistic approach for me and for many others, known as work-life integration. And the shift in perspective reflects a growing recognition that work and life are not separate, competing domains, but rather interconnected aspects of our lived experience that shape our overall well-being and fulfillment. And today we have an esteemed panel of experts who will share their insights on this crucial issue. And there might be some controversial, so I invite you to just listen, be open, be curious, and try to understand also what is not your direct view on the topic, but it might be, opening different paths. Because we will explore the benefits and challenges of work-life balance, integration, and also discuss strategies for leaders to effectively manage this. So let's dive in and welcome our panelists. And I want to start with Teresa Calvano. Welcome, Teresa. Teresa is a senior public affairs professional with over 20 years of experience influencing the European institutions in Brussels. She is currently a partner and the chief operating officer of Ruth Pedersen Public Affairs, where she's also leading the technology and finance practice. Teresa has a lot of children and is a work-life expert from experience, like many of us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Secondly, we have Verena Hefti. She is the CEO and founder of the award-winning social enterprise Leaders Plus, which supports leaders with young children to continue progressing in their careers. And she works with organizations and executives who want to take bold action to achieve gender equality at the senior leadership level and close the gender pay gap. Welcome, Verena. Next, we have Sabrina Tanquerel. She's an associate professor of human resource management and personal development at EM Normandy, where she has taught since 2011. And her research interests focuses on work-life balance policies, gender equality, and well-being at work. Prior to joining EM Normandy, Sabrina worked for 8 years in various multinational companies abroad. Welcome, Sabrina. And last but not least, let's welcome Marc Verbro. He is an associate professor at the Universitat Internacional de Catalunya, where he serves as vice dean and coordinator of the Child Care and Family Policies Chair. He has been a research fellow at Harvard Kennedy School and is part of the Children Wellbeing Research Network at the University of Chicago. His research focuses on work-family balance, fatherhood, childhood, family policies, and education, with his work published in an academic journal and books. So welcome, everybody. I am so thrilled that you are here, and I'm so curious to learn from you. And we have some topics on this work-life balance integration theme of today. And the first thing I would like to explore with you is the definition of work-life integration. So, how does the concept of work-life integration differ from the more traditional idea of work-life balance? And what are the key distinctions between the two approaches? Let's start with this one. Who wants to take the floor?
I can go first, Elena, if you want. If you want a bit of
Yes,
a spicy debate,
Yeah,
I can put
exactly.
some, yes.
Go ahead,
So,
Susan.
start rumbling in.
So I think, first of all, I think it's important to clarify the type of segment of the population we're talking about. So I think here we're talking about professional services. We're talking about lawyers, architects, consultants, financial advisors. So we're not talking about people who have somehow a salaried employee status, which usually have a fixed location and fixed hours. So two different segments. We're focusing on the professional services one. I think that's important because professional services usually have more freedom, location, and work time, but also they have specific characteristic. I guess driven, ambitious, they want to be intellectually stimulated, and they rarely count the hours. So I think just as a first point, who are we talking about? Professional services. Second, I struggle with the terminology. I've always struggled. Work-life balance, work-life integration, because in both cases, we're talking about work against life somehow, while work is part of life. So I think a more accurate terminology could be work, personal life. And then we can talk about balance and talk about integration. Just as to think, balance. The champions of integration seem to say that balance fails if it's not 50-50. I would argue everybody chooses the balance. Maybe for someone, 60-40 is a good balance. Maybe for others, it's 70-30. So the idea of demolishing the idea of balance just because it's not 50-50, I find it a bit awkward. A last point on integration, which I find interesting as a concept, it's a way of living. So, I mean, to be honest, we can talk and write books. That's how we work, integrated. But I have the feeling that there is the suggestion that work is allowed to infiltrate and permeate in our own personal life. It's blurred. There are no boundaries. And I would argue, I don't know, if it's really the harmony that I've read in the papers. I doubt that's the harmony we should long for. That's my first reaction about everything, the concept.
Beautiful, Teresa. Beautiful to start with. I think there's a lot of elements here that we can dig deeper. So who wants to dig deeper in one of these or in like the general concept that Teresa brings? Mark? Oh, Verena?
Yeah, I can go on. So yeah, I agree with this, especially the second half of the intervention, that when we talk about work-life integration, we confront work with life, and obviously work is part of the life now. But when you mentioned, Teresa, like, that we are focusing on professional service, normally, yes, but it would be nice, like, to try to find a concept that covers everyone, because in some sense, we are suffering the same challenge, and this challenge, for some authors, are called something like time famine. So it's this perception of not having enough time, and it's becoming a social problem. So we, in general, for different situations, because we have children, because we need to take care of our parents, we are suffering time famine. We need to solve this in a how to say it, like before it used to be an individual problem, nowadays it's a social problem. So we need to find a social solution for this new challenge that is time famine. Then like the concept itself, if it's work family balance, if it's work, I completely agree with you that confronting work with life, it's always problematic because work, it's part of the life. So I always like, I prefer to find or to use concepts like work, family, balance of work, family integration. Even some people use work, non-work integration, or work, non-work, or work, family, whatever, or work, personal. But then, as you know, so in the academy, so we have all these concepts who are even more nuanced, like work-family conflict or work-family enrichment, that, by the way, it seems that both exist at the same time. One is the lack of, this lack of balance, the work-family conflict, but we know that there is also the opposite, this work-family enrichment, that basically saying that what we learn at work can be transferred at home and vice versa. No? So we have a lot of concepts, but it would be nice like to have like an umbrella concept that it covers everyone, not professional service workers, and then to have like super specific concepts to also capture the complexity of our reality now. The challenge is to find these umbrella concepts that cover everyone.
Mm.
Mm.
If I can jump in there, so our social enterprise Leaders Plus supports people in banks, supports people in charities, in the government sector, and generally, Teresa, what you've described about being ambitious, going beyond the hours, I see that in all those environments and not just in professional services. I think for the people watching, imagine the critical bit about work-life integration is the word of freedom that seems to sit behind it, so that you can craft your own, and you need to create your own integration. But I think what we're not talking about enough is that that's work. So those who have caring responsibilities have to do the extra work of not just doing a great job, looking after the kids really well, but on top of that, doing the work of scheduling it all, making sure that you can go and attend your child's Christmas play if you're that way inclined, while at the same time making the board meeting and having your papers prepared. And that's additional work, and that's a social justice issue. And we know that sometimes we say women do a lot of that work-life integration and they multitask a lot, and multitasking is a female thing. Multitasking isn't a female thing, and it impacts on your performance. And I think we need to not shy away from that and actually say people being asked to create their own setups, that's a social justice thing for me.
If I may jump too, just talking about that, I love to listen to you, because our book Integrating Life, many years ago, we started saying integrating life, because it's one line is life, and then we have different places where we are developing our life. The thing is that the purpose has to be one personal purpose, and then it's operationalized in different areas of life. No? And then if we don't see this way, then, as Teresa said, it is not a problem of being enemies, work, family, or of course not. They are allies. And that's why we talk about integrating life, family, profession, personal life. No? Those are the different places where we live. And then we are in the center of a triangle, and the different vertices of the triangle are parts of the life, and that's it. So this is our challenge. And thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that intervention. Sabrina, you want to add something?
Yes, because I was listening to the conversations. Very interesting introduction about the terminology that we use. Of course, the terminology is very important because it it reflects the reality, but it also structures the understanding that we have also of the problematic. And I think that the debates relating to the management of paid work and other parts of life, especially family, have been the focus of research for many decades, from the 60s. And of course, we have been oscillating between work, family balance, work, family harmonization, work, family articulation, and according to the culture and according to the countries, we have several terminologies also to reflect this reality. But I think that it's
what is important and what is at the core of this debate is the importance that we give to work and the importance that we give to family life or personal life. And I think that, of course, today, with the changing work environment and with the changing also of the expectation of the social expectations, we have this reflection about what is work, what means work, and what position work has to have in our daily lives. And I think that, well, the interesting debate in all this is what we mean by work, what is work today, and the decreasing also of the centrality of work maybe in our lives in Western countries. Basically, but I think that what is because I was listening also to Teresa and Mark about the question of the needs of work-life integration, of work or non-work integration for white-collar people and blue-collar people. And what we see also in our interviews is that it's not only a problem, or it's not only a concern for white-collar people because of the time famine, as Mark said, but we see in our interviews that this is a real problematic also for blue-collar people, and that those blue-collar people, most of the time in their daily jobs, they don't have flexibility, and they expect also from the organization to provide them with flexibility, the enough flexibility to enable them to have this work, non-work integration. So I think, yes, this is a concern that is particularly crucial and accurate today because of our work new organizations and the demanding also organization, but it is also a common concern for many, many people.
Thank you, Sabrina. Teresa, you want to add something?
Yes, I'll take the end of. So there was a comment about the company. So I think this can be still theoretical unless the company helps employees to be autonomous. So in our company, Eru Pedersen, we say you should spend the majority of your time in the office, but basically it doesn't mean, I mean, it's not prescriptive. So what does majority mean? We take everyone as adults, grown up. They'll decide when they need to work from home to take a parcel, when they need to focus on writing a paper, or when they want to be in the office, because to be honest, presence matters. And it's important brainstorming, client meetings, face-to-face meeting with policymakers. It's even this webinar is great, but we didn't really get to know each other, and we won't have time to have a coffee with the people connected. So I think still presence is much better than being virtual. But no, my comment was around practice. So I'm living this work-life integration, and I think it is exhausting. So what I find is that I'm squeezing more and more personal and private activities in my day. So Wednesday, I have lunch with the kids, I bring them to the activities. It means that I finish working at midnight. That's fantastic. I mean, in a way, I'm getting the flexibility, I'm creating my flexibility, but it is very tiring. So obviously, colleagues know, and they know I'm trying to do the best. But I just want to dismantle the idea of, okay, it's all harmonious, it's all fine. So my conclusion about this tiring life is somehow I chose this line of work. I mean, I could be in a work from 9 to 5. I will get bored. So I think this job is so exciting and is so passionate that it compensates all the sacrifices that I'm doing with the kids. Second, we are the lucky ones. So think about a nurse, think about the lady who has to clean houses. She wants to have flexibility. If the kid is sick, she will have to take probably a day off. So it is an integration, and I would still argue is for a niche population, and I guess we are still the lucky one. So.
Yeah, as you can see, this is a concept and also a perception that is very, very, very individually. And although there has been research for so many years or even decades, like Sabrina says, it's still like we're not yet there in terms of how to work with this or how to deal with this. And especially lately, we look at very individualized societies, right? Where before there was a network of support with family, with friends, with neighbors that took care of the children, that did things for each other. Now we live in a very individualized society where sometimes people work, for example, in Luxembourg, and their families are miles and miles and miles away. They're in other countries, so they don't have any support there. And then there has been the aftermath of COVID, where people were working from home and were like, in this situation where they could or they had to combine things. There's technology, there's societal expectations, there's so many things added on this concept, like the last 10 years, that it feels like we can start over in definition. And I do believe that everybody is impacted, all generations, all genders, all kinds of work. But the thing is, how can we look at this in order to find this kind of I would say acceptance or work with it, instead of being a source of frustration? What would be like a way to look at this concept apart from how we call it, to deal with everything that is going on in our lives? Mark?
Yeah, Sabrina.
Yes, I can jump in because
Sabrina, you're gonna start and then I follow, yeah.
but maybe Mark, you will add something also to that, because for me that's a very good question, because I think that the work-life balance historically has focused on, and that's problem, and has focused on choice and personal and individual responsibility. And I think this is a problem, because I think that what work-life integration or work-life articulation or work non-work integration says is that, of course, it's not only an individual responsibility, because if we are talking about that, it's also because there are problems, and what we hide by saying that this is an individual choice or an individual responsibility, it's also the responsibility of the society, of organizations. And instead of focusing on individual responsibility, we have to focus on the need for organizations or a wider socioeconomic reflection around that. And I think that historically, maybe these debates have hidden the responsibility and the importance of the norms in organizations. The norms I'm talking about, for example, the ideal worker norm, which is still a very important norms, which is still very structuring how our behaviors or how we decide the work and the non-work responsibilities. So I think that a way also to maybe to deepen this debate is to have a look at the organizations, the norms that still are very constraining for people, for employees, for managers, and which somehow hidden these people from having a balance or an integration of work or non-work responsibilities.
Very good, Sabrina.
Mark?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Serena. So for me, at the end, no matter the concept, but like the definition for me is quite clear and it's quite simple. That is having the capacity to balance your life in the way that you consider appropriate in your temporal moment, that it could be different from now that you have 3 children who are super little compared to, I don't know, 10 years later. So like this work-life integration, integrating your life, at the end is having the capacity to balance or integrate the life that in the way that you consider appropriate. The thing is how to gain this capacity. In some jobs, it's more easy, or we have more policies, or we have this notion that Sabrina mentioned of the ideal worker. It's less dominant, so it's easier and you have more capacity. So um, if this is the definition, having the capacity, and it's part of the solution of this challenge that is time famine, we suffer time famine in general. All workers, in some sense, we have this challenge, time famine, and the solution is having the capacity to balance your life. Then, because it's a social challenge, we need a social solution that it's helping the worker, helping the person to have enough legitimacy to balance the life in the way that we consider appropriate, also respecting, because we are hired in a particular place, like the minimum of service work that we need to do, but at the end is having this capacity. The tricky thing here is always
Helena,
how we foster this.
Yeah. Helena, you also work with young parents who are absolutely in this specific phase. I agree, like Mark says, this varies depending on the phase that we are in. So you work with a lot of these young parents. What's your experience? What's your view on that?
Such an interesting discussion. The key that we haven't talked about yet is upskilling the employers to design roles where you can have time to switch off, because in many jobs that's not possible. But for example, in the UK, a surgeon operates until the surgery is finished, which in worst case scenario means you're being operated on by a surgeon who's been awake 24 hours, which I would rather not. But I think we need to different systems. We know in Denmark, for example, they change over surgeons during a surgery. That's just a very practical example of how a structure from an employer is changing what is possible. And that means we need to upskill managers to design jobs. It's really easy to design a normal 9 to 5 job where everybody ends up working 60 hours a week. That's easy, but it's hard to design a job where you do have a workload that is appropriate with part-time work. So many of the working parents I work with say they went back to 4 days a week, from 4 days a week back to full time, because they ended up working full time anyways, despite being paid for 4 days.
Yeah. Teresa?
There were a couple of a couple of concepts about education, society, companies. So I think we are the ones. So I never think, oh, it's the rules, it's the norms. We can make our own future and we can help shaping the environment. So we talk about society, we talk about education. I hope that I'm becoming somehow of a role model for my kids. They see a mom who works. And I explored over the weekend with my oldest. In view of this webinar, I said, okay, what do you think? Is it good that I work? I mean, I'm not that present as others. Do you suffer? And we went through all the reasons why it's a good thing that I work. One, money. I mean, they need to be fed. They need clothing. Second, my own autonomy. I don't need to ask anyone money if I need to buy, I don't know, clothes. I'm not a big spender, but this makes myself free to do what I want with money I earn. Third, we looked at the houses and lights. I'm paying taxes. I'm helping the city being cleaner with hospitals, etc. And most importantly, I'm fulfilled at work. I'm part of democracy in Europe. Actually, that's the beauty of the European Union. Every voice has to be heard. So they see a mom who's happy at work. So I'm thinking about education, how much we can influence our own little sphere. And I'm thinking about companies. So we're pretty well balanced in terms of gender. I think I don't know if it's the best solution, but the sound decisions are taken if you have a managerial position, women and men, because we're different. I don't see things like my fellow partners in the company, and I don't compare myself with them. I don't want to emulate them. I'm different. I'm proud of my difference, and I see things in a different way, which means that somehow I hope I'm helping, combining my mind with them to make a better integrated place. So I mean, the point is we're the ones. We can make it if we contribute personally and in professional life.
If I may intervene here, Elena, I have a point from Sarah Rees, who is in the webinar participant, and she says as follows: very nice points about right sizing, designing role is key from my perspective. It feels as though the work-life balance conversation and Mark's point reference becoming increasingly time poor as a reason as folk have become more vocal about the compromises, mainly outside of work, they feel they have to make to accommodate a role which was never designed to be doable within a reasonable number of working hours per week. This is her comment. Sarah, if you want to speak, feel free.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I was just reflecting on all of the points and my own experience. So I am in one of those professions that Teresa's describing, I guess, although I do agree with Rena's point that I don't think ambition and a desire for flexibility is limited only to those kind of roles. But certainly my experience working primarily in public sector roles, so publicly funded roles, is that where we are incredibly financially constrained, and I know this is an issue in the private sector, charitable sector as well, instead of right-sizing roles, instead of right-sizing expectations and deliverables or project timescales, essentially we continue to squeeze the same level of expectation into fewer roles, or we don't grow the workforce, we don't grow the roles, we don't grow the sort of staffing capacity to accommodate greater challenge, greater complexity, greater requirement for deliverables. So I think this conversation has been exposed by the fact that people are becoming increasingly vocal about the challenges they experience juggling all aspects of their lives, including work. And of course, then further exacerbated by what was experienced for some, but not everybody during COVID, where there was a greater level of flexibility, although rather bizarrely, because we were required to socially isolate. So in a bizarre way, that doesn't feel terribly flexible. But again, that feels like a step change in terms of exposing the compromise, as then organisations have tried to initially gently encourage a return to the office, and now more recently, much more firmly express a requirement for a return to an office. So it's just really a set of observations along those lines.
Thank you for that. Does anybody want to respond?
I just think that the good side of this scenario, though, at least in my experience, is that I think we can be much more efficient. So if the time is scarce, as we're saying, time limited, pressure, to be honest, when I'm at work, I focus. There are no chit chats. I mean, I need to work because then I want to go home. So the bright side of this work-life integration is that we're focused, and I've learned to just think of the present. So there will always be hundreds of things waiting for me home, the grocery and the clothing and doctors and healthcare. So, but at work, I only do these. When I'm home, I will only focus on that. There is no perfection. So you know what? I'm doing the best I can. We are perfectionists as women, especially. And I can talk about what I consider being the confidence gap in our world of women. But here at this point, the reaction is, I think there is a bright side, efficiency.
I agree, but I think what you are really good at, by the sound of it, is also setting those boundaries. We find many of our working parents feel a tremendous sense of guilt that they can't work 60 hours a week, the same way that their colleagues without caring responsibilities do. And so they feel they have to overcompensate to say yes to absolutely everything. And I think that skill of setting boundaries, either at the moment, either you learn it or you struggle with it so much that you drop out or go to a lower role. With our fellowship, we do work on setting boundaries, but I'm also putting in the chat a workbook in case it's helpful to people about how to set boundaries.
Many
Thank you
times the
so much for
problem,
that, Lorena.
yeah, many times the problem is that work is like a gas which enters every small room that you have in your diary and your agenda, and gets everything, because it's always the sanctions and incentives, very short term, and the family is always understanding and that, and then finally, poof, everything is broken. And then what you said, the guilty sense of things, but time famine is also subjective, huh? And the guilty is also subjective. You feel like if you, more women than men, if you are here, well, you should be there, huh? And you are there, you should be. So we need more rational in the way we decide things, and of course with the couple, because all this reconciling work, family, and personal life has to be done as a family, not just one alone like a warrior. Huh? And this is something we have to keep on saying and helping all these employees. Then that's the company has to make it easy for them to have flexibility, but also not to become victims of a system, but to be the change agents they have to be in their lives. Otherwise, it's always like a bad game, huh?
Exactly.
I would like to turn the attention indeed on the system, if you want to call it like that, because it has been brought here to the table also. If we're talking about efficiency, Teresa, or setting boundaries, like Verena said, this is like the responsibility that we have in order to keep that work, non-work or work-life balance or integration for how we want it. It's like a personal and individual responsibility. But when we look at organizations like the school system, they have not been adapting for decades. They are still maintaining the same rules and ways of working, and even bonus and incentive systems based on the same behavior than 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. While as a society, as humans, in terms of technology, we have evolved dramatically. So where is the responsibility? What is your opinion on where is the responsibility of organizations, of boardrooms, in order to recreate a way of work that is more adapted to how we feel it? You know, even if it's, I mean, not looking at gender or generations or type of work we do, where is the responsibility, and how can we make the organizations more responsible to look at that specific topic, to create the systems that make this work-life integration a lot easier?
I love this question, Elena. So I always try to think like, can you hear me well? So there is this sociologist, Wright Mill, that always tries to distinguish between individual problems and social problems. No? So if I'm the only kid in the States who suffer obesity, it's an individual problem. It's my fault in some sense. But if 1/3 of the kids in the States suffer obesity, it's a social problem and we need to do something socially. The same with unemployment. If I'm the only guy with who is unemployed in Spain, probably it's my fault, or it's an individual problem. But if 40% of young people in Spain suffer unemployment, we need a social solution. And I think that nowadays, and maybe it was not the case 40 years, who knows, but nowadays, work-family balance, it's shifting from individual problem with social problem, because there is high percentage of people suffering this thing. No? So we need, in some sense, a social solution. So I think both exercises are necessary. So we need an individual responsibility or individual strategies, like these coping strategies, as Teresa mentioned, that by the ways they contradict the integration, because like the best solution, it's sometimes is to segment, to separate. It seems that it works better than to integrate it. It's now I'm working and I'm fully focused on work, and now I'm with my kids and I'm fully with them, not like segmenters. And we have a lot of literature on the word family fields, we call this boundary management. No, but so that's the individual responsibility, or more than the responsibilities, personal or coping strategies. But then I think because it's becoming a social issue, we need, I don't know if the word is social solutions, but social support. And this support, it's from companies, it's from the state, like for example, parental leave, or companies should be aware, and they can be aware, and they can have a double strategy, like being aware and use this as an instrumental strategy because they know that they will retain talent, or because they understand that there is a real issue and it's a contemporary need for contemporary families. And at the same time, it will be positive for the company, but they are doing in both directions, for the workers and for themselves. So I think, and to sum up, like, because it's becoming a social problem, like all the social institutions should be aware of this and try to support. That's my point.
Thank you, Mark. Brina?
I have, before you speak, Teresa, I have here a comment from Elie Perna from Digital Leadership Institute, and I read what she said, and she will tell something. I personally feel that whenever this topic is talked about, what is meant by the life part is mostly related to childcare. However, there are a lot of women not having children, whether by choice or not, and have striving life outside of work. But this doesn't often seems to be seen as a priority. So if I'm not a parent, my work-life balance is not taken as seriously. I'm not at all downplaying the work that goes into parenting. So Heli, do you have something to say?
No. It's I'm also sitting in a cafe, so it's not very comfortable to talk. But yeah, that was my comment.
Okay, then I leave it to you to discuss also this comment if you wish.
I think it's a beautiful and very, very valuable comment. And thank you so much for sharing that, because indeed we tend to relate work life with work, family, and parenthood, while there are so many other roles and missions that we can have in life. So very interested in what our panel has to say about this.
Teresa, you had some.
Sorry. Yes, I can comment. So on the comment about yes, justifying the personal life if you're a mother or father, I agree with you. So I think leaving the office at 6 o'clock to go to the gym or going to a concert is an equally valid reason just to switch off. So I'm absolutely in favor of having a private life, personal life, which can be reading or hiking or actually taking care of kids. So I'm absolutely agree with you. Just on the concept expressed before by Mark, so I think it's about results. I personally don't care where the person is, provided that the results are there. The idea of the coat hanging on the chair to show that you are present, I mean, that's all days. We don't care. We just want to see the results. I would argue, how can you bring results in a profession which is in a retail work or life or line? If you need to show the clothes to a customer, you can just say, sorry, I need to go and bring I need to hang out my clothes. So there is a bit of a dilemma there. But anyway, its results, it's about dismantling the idea that we are indestructible. So society still wants us to pretend we are the strongest and indestructible. It's not true. We are fragile. And I think there is a new healthy wave, also in private sector, and I'm proud to be one in the company here, that shows to everyone, look guys, life can be very hard. And there are so many storms coming in personal life, which you don't expect. So let's stop pretending we are always the best, but let's try to reconcile personal and professional as much as you can. Last point, company culture, so absolutely crucial. And just point on flexibility. Ian Burns, who is our recruiter, told me that there is a study from Deloitte this year that says that Gen Z are the youngest. I had to read who's millennials, who boomer. I'm Gen Z are the youngest. So for them, it's not flexibility the reason why they change job, which we might think, oh, they are lazy, they don't want to work. No, they change job because of salary and career prospect, promotions. So it's a bit of an utopia, or it's a myth. It's a myth. Our idea of youngs, they want to just go and travel the world. They change for money and for promotions. Deloitte.
Rena?
Yes, I thank you for this for all these comments. I was just thinking about the social responsibility that Mark has just mentioned on this topic of work-life integration. I think, well, I agree with that. Of course, this is a social responsibility because we know that if it is only an individual responsibility, it leads to exhaustion. Because if you are alone, struggling with the conflict between your life and your personal or family life, of course, you will very quickly become exhausted by the situation because you cannot struggle all the time against the constraints and the greedy expectation from organization. And even if you want to, if you wish to be like agent of your life, we see that in many organizations and many situations that people, even if they wish, they cannot be they cannot reconcile their careers and their private lives because the norms and the ideologies in many organizations are still of the ideal workers, of the workers who need to be present. They need to be very available all the time, and if they are not adhering to these norms, they are just excluded from promotion and from perspectives of evolution in their companies. So we need also to be conscious, to be aware that there are still these norms that are very prevalent, maybe in sectors, masculine, non-male dominated sectors. We still view that, observe that in many organizations. So I think that it is obviously an individual responsibility, but we have to be conscious also that this is that it has to be a social and organizational and institutional responsibility, a priority, because we know also by research that too much flexibility leads to exhaustion, leads to self-exploitation. And because people, of course, when you benefit from flexibility at work and from remote working hours and so on, we know also that they work harder, they work longer hours. So we have to be also cautious with that. Also, about the comment of Ellie, of course, this is very accurate. This is very relevant when we talk about work-family balance or work-family integration. We should talk about work non-work or work private life integration, because obviously there is childcare, but we know that many also employees today take care of their ascendant, of their parents, and of course we don't have to have this hierarchy about what would be more relevant to be concerned of. And last things also about the social or the organizational responsibility. We know also that in organization, it is not because there are work-family policies that people benefit from them, because of the norms. We know that sometimes there are a lot of policies which are available, but of course availability does not mean implementation or does not mean usage from employees. And what we know also by research is that it is not because companies implement policies that people benefit from them effectively, that usage rate of those policies in companies is still very low compared to what companies say also.
If I may just to intervene now before Verena speaks, because Jan Burns responded a message to Ellie saying this is a highly relevant point. I know many people in this position who feel that they often have to pick up the slack that is left from accommodating the needs of parents. Of course, they don't object to flexibility for parents, but feel their voice is muted. Ian, please, if you have something to add.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, nothing particularly to add there, but it was just in response to that statement. It reminded me that, yeah, there's another part of society that, as Ellie said, either chooses or sometimes it's not by choice to have children or raise children, who feel that their particular needs aren't heard. It's a little bit, Teresa mentioned, it's not, okay, I mean, I think the conversation is dominated here a little bit around childcare, because I think that's the kind of common perception of where work-life balance suffers. But of course, as Teresa mentioned and a few others have mentioned, people have interests or needs or pursuits outside of the paid work environment. And I think that's something that also has to be taken into consideration. Maybe Sabrina, just whilst I'm here, I'll just pick up on a couple of the things that you just mentioned. I mean, yes, we talked about where the responsibilities lie, and yes, there's individual responsibility, organisation responsibility, and of course, society and social responsibility. Some of these things might be a little bit easier to address than others. But I mean, certainly in terms of organisation responsibility, it was interesting what you mentioned, Sabrina, that I mean, you mentioned there's quite a significant number of policies, positive policies in place that aren't taken up by employees or by the workers. If you could share the source of that, that could be quite interesting. But I think that's why, I mean, I believe, and I'm also part of the same organisation as Teresa, and we ensure, or we try to ensure that the managers we have and who have responsibility for the people, it's their responsibility to ensure that people aren't working unreasonable hours, because there are people who have a passion for what they do. And sometimes they would feel that if they weren't allowed to work as many hours as they wanted on something they feel passionate about, they would feel somehow restricted, and that would be unfair. But of course, as you say, Sabrina, sometimes they can be the victim of their own success or their own passion. So someone has to look out for them. Someone has to advise and help and, make sure that they're not working themselves into a vulnerable position. So I think, yes, so in terms of organisational responsibility, I think it's very important that the organisation not only has policies, but as you say, make sure that everyone benefits from the policies and no one slips through the net. So yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you, Ian, for your contribution. Verena, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes. On Heli's point about caring about results, in my experience, very sadly, but we need to see it realistically, CEOs and board members are not going to care about the conversation we are just having. What they will care, though, about is productivity, which in the UK is one of the lowest in the whole OECD. And I think the argument we need to make is that overwork, exhaustion, like Sabrina said, is impacting on productivity, and actually that longer working hours is not associated with higher productivity. And I think that's the argument we need to have.
Ellie?
the argument of the bottom line is the one
Yeah.
that is a short-term vision now, and you would like to extend it to a long-term vision because if people fall out because of depression or burnout, these are completely different productivity numbers, right?
Yeah. I would just say thanks, Serena, and just to clarify, I guess I speak very much from my perspective because I work with NGOs, and they tend to be smaller. So there's obviously, your CEO or director quite personally. So there seems to be more empathy, understanding. There's just a different flip side in NGOs often, which is that people work from like an activist, mindset, and so the productivity is kind of self-inflicted, as in like, I need to work more and more because I care about the cause of this NGO, etc. So I fully understand that what I'm talking about maybe not always apply, but I'm not really working with bigger companies. I generally really focus on NGOs and small startups. So that's also where kind of my, let's say, perspective comes from. It's also that pressure that people put on themselves in like, to be productive because they actually really care.
Anyone here?
Yes, I had a reaction about the long hours. So when I see people working too long, like until whatever, 8 or 9 o'clock on a regular basis, I think either, and me included, either they're slow. So actually, if we thought that this task should have taken 3 hours, it takes 8, something is wrong. Something is wrong. Maybe they're slow, or it's our fault. We haven't equipped them enough with colleagues. So I think the working long hours is actually a sign of sickness of the company, and we try, at least, I'm talking about my own experience, so we try to see as a whole how are the 70-80 people we have working. There are people that are too stretched and people that maybe actually have more capacity. How do we make sure that there is this cross we call it cross cluster collaboration? So that's just my point about long hours, which is I'm pretty critical about. Having said that, I work long hours, and I have something that even Christine Lagarde said is somehow is being short of confidence. So one of the characteristics I can see in women is this confidence gap. So women often, and I can say I am one, they need to over-prepare. So if I have a meeting, I spend the night reading the briefing. I want to know the details. I don't like improvisation. So, which means I work long hours. Has anyone forced me to go the extra mile? No, that's how I am. So something thank God, I've learned through the year is, you know what? That's how you are. Let's stop. Just stop trying to be like your colleagues or others. They might be fast and just need the top information. You are different, and if you are over prepared, then you'll be fine. You'll sleep, and you'll be fine. So long hours. I'm contradicting myself, but can be a way of coping from some of us. Just as I finish on this confidence gap of women, which I think is interesting. So I see this need to go into details as Lagarde. I can see the hesitancy that women have in pushing for promotion, asking for promotion, but also in accepting promotions. So maybe we think we're not good enough. Oh, will I manage? My God, it's too much for me. And as we touched upon this, is the sense of guilt. And again, is because probably the society is influencing men and women, or maybe I think that's how we are. We're structurally probably different, but again, there are strengths out of this which we can use at the workplace, at home.
Yeah, thank you so much, Teresa. It's obvious that this is a topic that has so many layers and so many elements and so many like built-in contradictions that we can try to embrace paradoxes and contradictions and try to figure out what works best for us as individual and as organization and as society. So Mark, you wanted to add something?
Yeah. So how to say it? So first, I really used like this combination of trying to understand the impact of work-family balance on productivity, and it's nice in some sense because normally it is current. So when we have more balance, we are more productive, we have more commitment, blah, 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 and then CEOs, they are attracted with this idea, and it's a good way to convince them. That's perfect. But at the same time, I have the feeling that it's a little bit dangerous. So, and especially it's dangerous for two reasons. The first one is, if this is true, that this is true, but it could be not true. So maybe there is a limit and I will be less productive. But if it's true, we are converting work-family balance in a tool for productivity, which is not bad, but at the end it's a tool, and people perceive this. And then some people, even when they have flexibility, they are not able to use it because they know that the companies are doing this in order like to rethink people. So we are a little bit scared and we are not using. So if this is true, it's fine, but we should never use work family flexibility as a tool. And the other ones is what happens if one day, there is a limit on the productivity. So we will stop doing work-family balance. So I think that we should be able, and I know that I have here a radical opinion, but I think we should be able like to construct an argument for work-family balance that goes beyond productivity. That's my point.
And then Ellie added one thing. She said, I think the word productivity should also be reconsidered because it is not productive at all to have burnout employees who are then on sick leave, and it just gives your company a bad reputation too.
Absolutely. We are over top of the hour, so it is time to wrap up. It's time to wrap up a discussion that can go on for a long time, as it already is a live discussion for many, many years. And we are not here to solve it in this hour. We were here to bring you different perspectives, different ideas, different ways of looking at things and experience it in different ways. And what I would like to invite everybody here, the panelists, is I will do the tour, like give your one final advice or statement or quote that you feel is relevant for our audience, for the people that are here with us and the people that will watch the replay, that might be life-changing for them. So it's a last challenge for you to bring like a short quote and then we go to the Q&As if there's any questions left that might help people, support people in order to deal with this specific concepts. Who wants to start?
I have two, and can I just say that's a very challenging level that you've just said there. So first, if you're struggling with work-life balance or integration, just remember it's not because you're bad at work and life, it's because the system isn't set up for people like you. And secondly, practice setting that boundaries. It's like a muscle. At the beginning, setting boundaries is really hard, but just keep practicing it and it will get easier.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Verena. Thank you for that. Who's next?
Yeah. So for me, like work-family balance or work-life integration, I sometimes consider as a light topic, and people prefer like to focus on other topics like strategy, finance, whatever. But at the end, it's a serious one. And at least it has a lot of serious implications. So we should consider work-family balance not as a light topic, but as a super serious one.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mark. Teresa?
So I'll be very practical. So I mean, the three guiding principles in my life, as I said, I can only share my experience. So one, for probably young female or actually young men who are online. So as I said, one, focus on the present. Just think about what you have in front of you. Anything else has to get out of your brain. Otherwise, you'll do multitasking, which doesn't work at all. Multitasking is, again, another myth. So working on the present. Second, somehow follow your instinct. So each of us has a compass. In my case, it's faith, it's culture, it's family, it's hardworking. So everything I do in life is guided by my compass. So I would encourage everyone to think of what is the north, south, and east and west, and then you make your decision and don't get influenced by others. You are it's your happiness we're talking about. So focus on the present, follow your compass, and then just accept that perfection doesn't exist and you cannot do everything on your own. You need to rely on others. Otherwise, you will get into this burnout, which we talked about. So my 3 tips.
Thank you so much, Teresa. Wonderful. Sabrina?
Yes, well, I think that of course the work non-work articulation or balance or integration is not one size fits all. Of course, there is no one best way or one universal recipe to balance correctly the work and non-work responsibilities. But what is clear, I think, is to reflect on what is a socially sustainable work. And because we know that today in every advanced countries, the rate of burnout and the rate of stress at work is very high. So I think that of course, work life is a crucial topic. It's a very serious topic because it has impacts in every domains in life. But I think that the future of work non-work balance or work non-work integration is what we mean by a socially sustainable work, a socially sustainable job, and how this socially responsible, this socially sustainable work would be and would what would be the orientation in company, the concrete orientation in company to promote this sustainable work.
Thank you so much. Before we go to the Q&A, I would like also to give a special mention to Christine Marlet, who is one of the driving forces of WomenHub and who has made this event possible and who has planned and allowed us to prepare and to connect with each other and to co-create a beautiful session. I saw a lot of energy, not only with the panelists, but also with the people attending here. And I hope that this energy is also transferred to the people that are watching the replay. So thank you so much, Christine, for doing the things you do, for being such an important source of inspiration and proactivity. And so if you are not a member of WomenHub yet, I would invite you to check the website because there are sessions like this very, very regularly, and they all have the same important topics that is contributing to make this world a better place. So
then
thank you for that, Christine.
Yes, thank you. But I also would like to thank the speakers and yourself because it was really a very interesting discussion and you all accepted to participate. And then I'm very pleased for that. I'm very happy and hopefully we will have still more cooperation in the future.
Absolutely. And thank you also for the participants with all the chat input and the live input. That was amazing. So we still have like 5 minutes for anybody who would like to add something, something you learned, something that surprised you, something that you maybe disagree with. So ask for the floor or put it in the chat if it's difficult to speak up. So
I have Maria. I have Kasia, Carmel, and Maria who said thank you. Very interesting.
Wonderful. Anybody else who wants to share what they learned? All right. And I think, Christine, that we can close the session. Thank you so much, Verena, Sabrina, Teresa, and Mark for a wonderful conversation and for all these inputs on a topic that is, so rich and has so many layers. I've learned a lot. I'm sure that everybody here learns, and opened our eyes and our hearts for, looking at this concept a little bit differently in a way that makes it a little bit easier. And feel free to reach out to everybody that was here. They're all on LinkedIn and other social media. So if you want to reach out, if you have questions, then please do so. Very welcome.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a great
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Take care. See
Thank
you
you.
soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.